Firstly, open Photoshop and make a new A4 file. You do this by going to File, New, and then make sure you're in the print section. Move along to A4. Click on it and then make sure that you are at 300 dpi. Save that. The next thing to do, now that you've got your new file, is to open the first image that you want to work on. So that was simply File and Open. Then you can choose your image. This will then open in another box. What we want to do now is transfer that image to the A4 file that you have just created. So make sure that you are on the rectangular marquee selection tool, draw around your open image, then come down to Edit and copy it. Then we go to the brand new A4 document you opened first, and we're going to paste in the image. As you can see, it's a bit small. It doesn't fit the document. So what we will do is we'll go to Edit and Free Transform the image. What we can do now is you will see little handles appear, and if you hold the Alt key down while you drag, you should be able to bring the image up a bit, make it larger. If it goes wrong and it gets squished or whatever, just simply go up to Edit and Undo. You may have to hold the Shift key down depending on whether you're using a Mac or whether you're using a PC, and this will keep the aspect ratio so you don't get any squishing. Then you've got your image, you can then move on. So back to New, and we'll create our second image, and we'll go along to Print at the top, and we'll move along again and we'll go to A4, that's the size we want it, and we'll open it. And just like last time, the next thing to do is to go and grab our second image, and we'll go and get that now, and we just open it. We'll then repeat the process where we'll draw a rectangle around the whole of the opened image, and then we'll go up to Edit, and then we'll copy that image, and again we'll paste it into the new document. This time the image is bigger, so what we need to do is take the Move tool and just move it along so that it's exactly in place where we want it. Now we can go back and we can look for our original image and get rid of it so that we're just left with the A4 one. The exciting part starts now, because this is where we take our A4 image that we've already generated and we'll start to play around with it. So we'll go up to Image and Adjustments, and we'll turn it, I think, black and white. That's what I'm looking for. So locating black and white, it takes us to this box, so we click OK, and we've just brought it down to a black and white image. The next thing to do is just to have a little play around with our levels, because what we're aiming for are very strong blacks and very white whites. We're looking for a very, very contrasty black and white image. So by playing around with these little sliders here under the levels tab, you can see how it's affecting the image on the left. So we can make it lighter, darker, we can make midtones lighter, darker. And we just simply play about until we get that image looking exactly how we want it. Yeah, I think I'm just about happy with that. So then when we've got it spot on, just a little bit more tweaking, we just go up to the top, click OK, and there we have it. The next thing to do is to posterize the image. So we simply come down to posterize, but it's really important to make sure that the number that's sliding around when I slide the slider is only at 2. Okay, so we hit OK, and that now gives us a lovely contrasty black and white image. There we go. So, saving the image, we go to Save a Copy under the File menu. There we go. And what we need to do is actually save it as a JPEG. So we hit this drop down button. Don't save it at this stage as a Photoshop image. We just save it as a JPEG. And we call it something relevant. We make sure that it's on the highest quality and we hit OK. And then we've produced the first of our images for print. So now we move back onto the second image, which we're going to turn into a bitmap. This is slightly more interesting, slightly more complex, but we'll start by making it black and white. So I'll click OK. And then a similar process of looking at the levels. So we'll go and we'll get the levels up again. There we go. And we can play around again to make sure that we've got some very white whites and some very dark darks. It might take you a little while to get it exactly how you want it, and there's certainly no harm in playing around until you get that image exactly as you want it. I took a little while over this. And you can see how the image on the left moves as you tweak the sliders on the right. Again, once we're happy with that, we just hit OK. But at this point, it becomes just a little bit more involved. We need to convert our image to grayscale. This is really important. Otherwise, we won't have access to the menus that we require. So we go up and convert to grayscale. Then we go to Mode and we go to bitmap. When we're in bitmap, we don't really touch this area apart from taking it to halftone. That is very important. It must go to halftone. And we click OK. And then this is the fun part, because we can play around with the numbers here to make our dots or our diamonds, whatever we choose, or our circles, larger or smaller. So I'm going to start with a smallish number, And you need to zoom in, get it to 100% if you can, just to see what it's actually done to the image. I'm not so sure about that because personally I feel the dots are just a little bit large there. So edit, undo, which is the action I've just done there, back to mode, back to bitmap, and then back to this area. And then we can just play around here and increase the number. So we're increasing the number of dots. Yeah. And again, if we zoom in, you can see that the dots are a lot finer and the image, I think, is a lot clearer here. So again, zoom into 100% to make sure that you're absolutely happy with the way that the image is looking. This is very important. It's not easy, it's not just a case of looking at it when it's small. You really do need to zoom in. Then we'll save a copy. Now, again, we'll try and save it as a JPEG. Now, if you find this happens and your file is a little big, you won't find JPEG in that box. There is no JPEG in that drop down, so we'll cancel out of that. And then we will go to export instead. So we come down to export, export as, and then you'll see at the top right hand corner, JPEG. So there's a drop down there. We just make sure that we have JPEG selected and then we click save. And that gets the new update, the new Adobe update, which has forced people to save as a copy or go and do an export. So if you can't save as a JPEG, save a copy as a JPEG, just export it as a JPEG. So now we've got our two images ready and prepped for printing. If you want to experiment, you could copy one of the images on top of another image and just have a little look to see what it looks like. So I've just popped one image, the dotty image, on top of the posterised image. And I'm going to play around with the blend modes now. There, that's quite an interesting image. As you toggle through the different blend modes, it does have an effect on the image. So it's just a case of simply playing around until you get something that you like. There's lots to choose from, and I suggest that you have a good look at this. It could be that we might want to go back and actually add some colour to these images to see what kind of inks we would like to use. So that we can return to the project, we will now go and save a copy of the file, but this time as a PSD file. So that is a Photoshop file. So we'll call it something sensible, and we will save it as a Photoshop file, which will have saved everything that we've done, and then we can go back and revisit it and maybe add some blocks of colour in there. There we go, just saving it. So the original image was this one and this one. We then posterised the fish, and then we bitmapped the watch. We combined them, And then I went back into my Photoshop file and I produced some different colorways. And that is how you produce files for print.